Welcome to the Soul Dark Romance Stories. The channel will bring you stories of strong bonds, cultural differences, passionate love, and unforgettable dramatic events. If you love interracial love stories and cinematic storytelling, then this is the place for you. Enjoy listening. Please subscribe to the channel to hear more great stories. The night my family tried to kill the woman I loved was the night I stopped being their son. I do not remember the exact moment I fell in love with Imani Brooks. Men like me are not built for that kind of realization. We do not fall. We calculate. We take. We control. But she was none of those things. She did not bend when I spoke. She did not flinch when she learned who I was. The first time we met, she looked at me like I was just another man standing in her way. And for some reason I could not explain, I stepped aside. That was the beginning. Quiet. Unremarkable. Dangerous in ways I did not understand at the time. In Las Vegas, power is loud. It announces itself with money, with violence, with men who think fear is the same as respect. I built my name inside that noise. Every decision I made followed one rule. The family comes first. Always. There are no exceptions. There are no personal desires that outrank the code. That is how I survived. That is how I became someone people do not question. Until her. Imani did not belong to my world. And that was exactly why I could breathe when I was with her. She worked late hours, lived in a small apartment that did not try to impress anyone, and carried herself like someone who had already fought battles no one else could see. She never asked me what I did for a living. She did not care about the cars, the money, the reputation. When I tried to give her something, she looked at me and said, "I am not for sale." No one had ever said that to me before. I should have walked away right then. That would have been the smart decision. The safe one. I did not. We kept everything quiet. No public appearances. No names attached. Just late nights and conversations that felt more real than anything I had ever built. For the first time, I was not performing. I was not calculating outcomes. I was just there. That alone was enough to make her dangerous in the eyes of my family. They found out faster than I expected. The first warning came from my older brother. He did not raise his voice. He never does. He simply placed a file on the table in front of me. Her name, her past, every detail laid out like evidence in a case that had already been decided. She is beneath you, he said. Not in status, in usefulness. She offers nothing. She creates variables. You know what we do with variables. I closed the file without reading the rest. She is not part of this, I said. That was my first mistake. The second warning came from my uncle. Less polite, less patient. He did not bring a file. He brought consequences. You are forgetting who you are, he said. A man in your position does not get distracted by something like her. If you cannot control it, you remove it. Or we will. I should have listened. I did not. Because for the first time in my life, I chose something that was not built on fear. They warned me twice. The third time, they did not use words. Imani Brooks was the only person in my life who never tried to understand my power. And somehow that made her the only one who understood me. She did not ask questions that led to control. She asked questions that led to silence. The kind of silence that forces a man like me to sit with himself, something I had avoided my entire life. The first time she asked me why I looked tired, I almost laughed. No one had ever asked me that without wanting something in return. I told her I was fine. She looked at me for a long moment, then said, "You do not have to lie here." That sentence stayed with me longer than any threat I had ever received. Her world was small, but it was real. She worked at a late-night community center, helping people who had nowhere else to go. Runaways. Women escaping violence. Men who had fallen too far to climb back on their own. It was the kind of place my world created without ever acknowledging. I watched her there once, without her knowing. She moved through the room with quiet purpose, speaking softly, listening more than she talked, treating people like they mattered even when the rest of the city had already decided they did not. No fear, no hesitation, just presence. I realized then that she was not strong because she survived her past. She was strong because she refused to let it define how she treated others. That was what my family saw as a threat. Not her past, not her background, her independence. She did not depend on me for money. She did not depend on me for protection. She did not even depend on me for emotional stability. She chose to be with me. And choice is something my world does not trust, because it cannot be controlled. You are changing, my brother said one night, watching me from across the table during a family meeting. His voice was quiet, but every word carried weight. You leave early. You ignore calls. You hesitate before decisions that used to take you seconds. That is not evolution. That is weakness. I did not respond. Because he was right. I was changing. Not in the way he thought. I was not becoming weaker. I was becoming aware of what I had become, of what I had never allowed myself to feel, of how empty everything I built actually was when there was no one I cared about inside it. They followed her. I knew they would. My family does not accept unknown variables. They dissect them. They reduce them to data. They turn people into reports. Within days, they had everything. Her childhood, foster care records, arrests that never led to convictions, jobs she held just long enough to survive. Every scar, both visible and hidden, laid out like a map of everything she had endured. They brought it to me again. This time, my uncle spoke first. She is damaged, he said. People like her do not build stable lives. They attach. They depend. Then they break. When she breaks, she takes you with her. I looked at the file. I saw the gaps, the inconsistencies, the parts of her life that could not be explained by simple narratives. But I also saw something they refused to acknowledge. She survived everything they listed. Without help, without protection, without becoming like us. She is not weak, I said. My uncle's expression did not change. That is exactly the problem. The warnings escalated after that. They stopped talking to me and started talking to her. I found out 2 days later. Imani did not tell me right away. That was her way. She handled things on her own until she could not. When she finally did, we were sitting in her apartment, the city lights cutting through the window behind her. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, her posture tight in a way I had never seen before. Your family came to see me, she said. I did not move. When? Yesterday. What did they say? She let out a slow breath, like she was deciding how much truth I deserved. They told me to leave you. They said I was a problem that needed to be fixed. They made it sound polite, but it was not a suggestion. Anger rose, sharp and immediate, but I kept it contained. That is what I do. I control. Did they touch you? I asked. Her eyes met mine, steady, unafraid. Not yet. The answer hit harder than anything else. Yet. She walked closer, stopping just out of reach. I am not scared of them, she said. I have dealt with worse than men who hide behind suits and money. But I need to know something. I waited. Are you going to protect me? Or are you going to protect them? The question was simple. The answer was not. For years, the choice had always been clear. Family above everything. No exceptions. No hesitation. That was the rule that defined me. The rule that built me. But standing there, looking at her, I realized something I had never considered before. Maybe the rule was wrong. I will handle it, I said. That was not the answer she wanted. I can handle myself, she replied. What I need to know is whether I am standing next to a man who will choose me when it matters. Silence stretched between us. Because for the first time, I did not know if I could give her that certainty. She nodded slowly, as if she had expected that. Then she stepped back, creating distance that had never been there before. They cannot control me, she said. So they are going to try something else. I knew she was right. Because in my world, when control fails, elimination follows. And my family had already made their decision. They could not control her. So they decided to remove her. The call came at 2:17 in the morning, and I knew before I answered that something had already gone wrong. My brother does not call unless there is a result to report. Not a discussion. Not a warning. A result. I picked up on the second ring, my voice steady, my mind already moving through possibilities I did not want to name. It is done, he said. Clean. No witnesses. Just like we discussed. For a moment, I said nothing. Not because I did not understand. Because I did. Too well. The words settled into place with a clarity that felt like impact. Then where is she? I asked. A pause. Brief. Almost unnoticeable. Hospital, he replied. Complications. But she is alive. Alive. The word should have brought relief. It did not. It brought something else. Something colder. Because in my world, survival is not mercy. It is unfinished business. I was out the door before the call ended. The drive across the city blurred into a sequence of lights and empty streets. My hands tight on the wheel. My thoughts sharper than they had been in years. They had moved without my approval. Not just against my wishes, but ahead of them. They had decided the outcome and acted on it, assuming I would accept it after the fact. That was their mistake. Not the attempt. Not the method. The assumption. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet desperation. I walked past the front desk without slowing, past security without being stopped. My presence opens doors that are supposed to remain closed. It always has. The hallway outside her room was empty except for one guard. Mine, not theirs. That told me everything I needed to know. He stepped aside without a word. I pushed the door open. Imani lay in the bed, too still for someone who was supposed to be strong. Machines surrounded her, their steady rhythm filling the silence I had created in every part of my life. Her arm was wrapped in bandages. There was a cut across her forehead, not deep, but enough to mark what had happened. Her breathing was slow, controlled by something other than her own will. For a second, I did not move. This was not how I had ever seen her. Not in control. Not standing. Not looking at me with that calm defiance that had unsettled me from the beginning. She looked small. Human in a way that made everything else I had built feel unnecessary. The doctor spoke behind me, words about impact, about internal injuries, about how lucky she was. I did not listen. Luck had nothing to do with this. Precision did. Calculation did. And something had gone wrong. What happened? I asked. Single vehicle collision, the doctor said. Lost control. Hit the barrier. No other cars involved. A lie. A clean one. Designed to hold under casual scrutiny. Designed to disappear under pressure. I stepped closer to the bed, my eyes tracing every detail, every mark, every sign of what they had done. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Messages. Updates. Explanations I did not need. I ignored all of them. Her hand moved. Barely. But enough. I reached out without thinking, my fingers closing around hers. Warm. Alive. Fragile in a way I had never allowed myself to consider. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then settling on me. Recognition came last. You are here, she whispered. Of course I am, I said. Her lips curved slightly, something close to a smile, but weaker than anything I had ever seen from her. You are always late, she murmured. The words hit deeper than they should have. Not this time, I replied. She studied me, her gaze clearer now despite the pain I could see she was trying to hide. Your family did this, she said. Not a question. No. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. I told you, she said quietly. They would not stop. I know. The room fell into silence again, but it was different now. Heavier. Final in a way that left no space for denial. I thought you would choose them, she said. I did. The truth came out before I could stop it. For a second, her expression did not change. Then something shifted. Not anger. Not surprise. Something closer to acceptance. Like she had already prepared herself for that answer. And now she asked. I looked at her hand in mine, at the machines keeping her stable, at the marks that should not have been there. Now I said they chose for me. Because there is a line in every life, in every system, in every rule you build to survive. A line that separates control from destruction, order from chaos, loyalty from something else entirely. They had crossed it. And once that happens, there is no going back. I released her hand slowly, not because I wanted to, but because I needed both hands free for what came next. My phone vibrated again. This time I took it out. Dozens of messages. My brother. My uncle. The same words repeated in different forms. It was necessary. You will understand. This protects everything. They were wrong. I stepped out into the hallway, closing the door behind me, sealing her away from the world I was about to turn against itself. My guard looked at me, waiting. Lock it down, I said. No one goes in without my approval. He nodded. I opened a new channel. Not the family line. Not the system they controlled. Mine. Cut all external accounts tied to the West Division, I said. Freeze transfers. Redirect communications through my authorization only. No one moves anything without clearance. There was a pause on the other end. Then a single response. Understood. This was not anger. This was structure. This was dismantling. Back in the room, the machines continued their steady rhythm, unaware of the shift that had just taken place beyond the door. They thought I would mourn. They did not realize I was planning. I did not attack them immediately. That would have been expected. Emotional. Predictable. My family survives because they anticipate reactions, not strategies. So I gave them exactly what they believed they still had. Control. I attended meetings. I answered calls. I spoke with the same measured tone they had trained into me since childhood. If they expected rage, I gave them calm. If they expected rebellion, I gave them obedience. That was the first step. Let them believe nothing had changed. Behind that, everything changed. I started with money. Not because it is the most important, but because it is the most fragile when handled correctly. Every operation they ran depended on flow. Clean channels. Dirty channels. Accounts layered through systems designed to hide movement. I built half of those systems myself. I knew where the weaknesses were. I knew which accounts could be frozen without triggering alarms, and which ones would cause panic if they disappeared overnight. So I did neither. I slowed them, just enough to create tension. Payments delayed by hours, then by days. Small inconsistencies that forced questions but did not provide answers. My brother noticed first. We were sitting across from each other in a private room, the same place he had warned me weeks earlier. Something is off, he said, his eyes narrowing slightly. Transfers are not aligning. Partners are asking questions. I kept my expression neutral, my voice steady. Then fix it, I said. That is your division. His jaw tightened. He was not used to being dismissed. Good. Pressure creates mistakes. While he searched for problems that did not exist, I moved to the next layer. Information. Every deal my family made was built on leverage, blackmail, hidden agreements, evidence stored in places no one outside the inner circle knew about. Except I did. I accessed archives that had not been opened in years, pulling records, copying files, mapping connections. Between people who believed their secrets were buried. Then I started releasing them. Not publicly. Not yet. Just enough to shift alliances. A message sent to the right person. A document appearing where it should not. Quiet fractures spreading through networks that depended on trust to function. Within days, partners began to withdraw. Not openly. Not dramatically. But I could see it in the numbers. In the hesitation before signatures. In the way meetings ended without decisions. My family noticed that too. My uncle called me in. You have been quiet, he said, studying me the way he always did when something did not align with his expectations. Too quiet. That can mean two things. Discipline. Or betrayal. Which do you think this is? I asked. He held my gaze for a long moment. I think you are testing the limits of your position, he said. And I think you are forgetting that your position exists because we allow it. I leaned back slightly. My posture relaxed in a way that suggested nothing had changed. Then remind me, I said. His expression hardened. Good. The more they focused on me, the less they saw everything else collapsing around them. Next, I removed protection. Not mine. Theirs. Security teams reassigned. Routes adjusted. Information withheld at critical moments. Not enough to expose them directly. Just enough to create vulnerability. A shipment intercepted. A meeting location leaked. Small failures that added up to one undeniable truth. They were losing control. By the time they realized it was not coincidence, it was already too late. The first arrest happened on a Thursday morning. One of my cousins. Mid-level. Not important enough to cause immediate panic, but connected enough to start questions. Law enforcement does not move that fast without help. Without information. Without someone guiding them to the exact place they need to be. They started looking for a leak. They did not look at me. Not yet. I visited Imani that night. She was awake, sitting up slightly, the color returning to her face in small, stubborn ways. When she saw me, she did not smile. She did not reach for me. She just watched, the same way she had the first time we met. Measuring. Deciding. What did you do? She asked. What needed to be done, I replied. Her eyes narrowed. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have, I said. She studied me for a moment longer, then looked away, her attention shifting to the window beside her. You are going to burn everything down, she said. No. Iraplia. I am removing what should not have existed in the first place. She let out a quiet breath, something between frustration and understanding. And what happens after that? I did not answer. Because I did not know. That was the truth I had not admitted to anyone. Not even myself. I knew how to destroy. I knew how to dismantle systems, how to take power apart piece by piece until nothing remained. but building something different. Something not rooted in control and fear. That was territory I had never stepped into. Her voice pulled me back. You cannot undo this once it starts, she said. I looked at her, at the strength she still held despite everything that had been done to her. I know. She nodded slowly, as if accepting that answer even if she did not agree with it. Then do not hesitate, she said. By the time my family realized it was me, they had already lost everything that mattered. The money was unstable. The alliances were fractured. The protection they relied on had been quietly stripped away. All that remained was the truth, and I was ready to show it to them. They called the meeting at the main house, the same place where every decision that shaped my life had been made. Nothing about it had changed. Same long table, same cold lighting, same faces that had taught me what loyalty meant and what it cost. They were already seated when I walked in, their expressions controlled but no longer calm. They knew something was wrong. They just did not know how deep it went. You did this, my brother said without preamble. I did not sit. Yes, I replied. The word landed heavier than anything else I had said in that room before. No denial, no strategy, just truth. My uncle leaned forward slightly, his eyes sharp, searching for something he could still control. Do you understand what you are admitting? He asked. I do. Silence followed. Not the kind built on power. The kind built on realization. They were no longer in control of the situation. They were reacting. Why? My brother demanded, his voice tightening despite himself. For her. For someone who was never meant to be part of this. I stepped closer to the table, my gaze moving across each of them, taking in the people who had raised me, trained me, shaped me into something they could use. You touched her, I said. That was your mistake. My uncle's expression hardened. We protected you, he said. We built you. Everything you are exists because of this family. No, iraplia. Everything I am exists because I survived it. That was the moment it ended. Not with violence. Not with raised voices. With understanding. They saw it in my eyes. There was nothing left to negotiate. No loyalty to appeal to. No control to reclaim. Security moved in before they could react. Not mine, not theirs, but forces already set into motion long before this meeting began. Doors opened. Orders were given. One by one, they were removed from the room that had once defined them. No power. No authority. Just men facing consequences they had never believed would reach them. My brother stopped at the doorway, turning back one last time. You are destroying your own blood, he said. I held his gaze. You crossed that line first. The door closed behind him. And just like that, it was over. Hours later, I stood outside the hospital again, the city quieter than it had been in days. The empire I built was no longer what it had been. Pieces of it still stood. Others were already collapsing. But for the first time, none of that felt like loss. I walked into her room without hesitation. Imani looked up as I entered, her expression steady, stronger now. She did not ask what happened. She already knew. It is done, I said. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. And you, she asked. I took a step closer, stopping where she could still choose distance if she wanted. I am not their son anymore, I said. The words felt final, not heavy, just true. She looked at me, not with fear, not with doubt, but with something quieter. Then who are you? She asked. For the first time, I did not have an answer. But I knew one thing. I was finally free to find one. They raised me to destroy enemies. They just never thought one day they would become one. If your own family became your enemy, would you still hesitate? I did not rebuild the empire the way it was. Some things are not meant to survive once the truth is exposed. Power built on fear always collapses when it meets something real. What I chose instead was uncertain, slower, and far more dangerous in a different way. A life where control is not guaranteed. A life where love is not owned, but earned. I do not know if I deserve that kind of future yet, but for the first time, I am willing to try. So tell me this. If the people who raised you became the ones who tried to destroy what you loved most, would you still call them family? Or would you walk away and burn everything behind you? If this story stayed with you, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might be the one someone else needs to hear today.